know, we've had some amazing training already. I'm beginning to think, what am I going to say that you haven't already heard? Let me start with a little bit about my background for those of you who were meeting each other for the first time today. On Monday, I celebrate my 11th anniversary with Forever. And it's a long time. It's more than a decade. When I was first, well, let me tell you about my background. Let's go way back. I'm from Canada. My parents are actually Canadian. No, my parents are actually Italian, and they immigrated to Canada many, many years ago. So I'm first generation Canadian, and I came to the UK, it'll be 17 years ago in November, to be with my husband, who's British. I come from a very traditional business background. Nearly 12 years ago, I started a family. I've got two amazing boys who are 8.5 and 11.5 years old. And I knew then, with all of my family being in Canada, and Jeff's family, Jeff lost his parents many years ago, so it was really just us to raise our children. I didn't want my kids in full-time childcare. When my son was 6 months old, a neighbor of mine invited me to have a look at Forever. I didn't understand it at first. When I went along to the business presentation, I still didn't really understand it, but I was really excited. And I got started straight away, and initially, this idea of excitement really just captured all of my attention. I could see lots and lots of possibilities. And then the reality set in that actually you have to work hard, and there are going to be some disappointments along the way. And something that stands out at every single Forever event, whether it's a one-on-one planning meeting, whether you do a prospecting call or show someone a website, every single training event or success day, wherever you go in Forever, you can be guaranteed that during that event, someone will ask you or talk about or mention either a goal or your why. Am I right? And so I think in Forever we can sometimes become complacent and think we have a why, we know what our why is, or maybe we approach it in a way just to get it done, the tick-the-box approach. Let's just set some goals down on paper. And yet it surprises me that I think as children or as teenagers, we all have incredible goals. I mean, really incredible, limitless goals. And most people spend their whole lives working hard and never, ever getting close to their goals. Is that right? And they finish their lives full of regrets. For me, I'm just going to see what page we're on. For me, I guess my first encounter to the whole idea of goal setting was in my 20s. A friend of mine, Brett, had just come back from Australia again, and although he'd been to Australia many times, this trip was particularly special because on his dream sheet life list was a goal to visit Ayers Rock, Uluru, because he was very into spiritualism and he wanted to go and visit and experience the spiritual history that surrounded Ayers Rock. And he just went on and on and on and on about what a big deal this was to have achieved something so significant, at the age of 26. And not only did he go on about how wonderful it was, but we all had to sit down and write a life list. Right, Brett. You see, there's a couple of differences between Brett and the rest of us. So as much as Brett, boasted and encouraged us all to write this list, I resisted. And then the conversation went on to talk about, regrets. And I guess we were old enough and mature enough to appreciate that, a lot of old people die full of regrets. And we said, we didn't want to be those really old people, and it's going to sound really crude, but remember we were in our mid-20s, so we're meant to sound crude when you're 25. Lying in a hospital bed full of tubes in every orifice, full of regrets, instead of appreciating and reliving some of the exciting experiences and goals that we'd achieved. So it was really on Brett's, passion or excitement or just persistence that we all sit down and write a list. I sat down and wrote a list, but I can tell you, did I believe any of that was ever going to come true? No. Simply because by that point, it had already been preconditioned that people like me don't achieve things like that. And in Forever, we're encouraged to study the leaders. Really look at what they are doing. And not just here in Forever, but, outside the Forever world as well. And looking at the leaders and all that they've achieved, I guess the process that they followed. For me, I've picked out 4 key ingredients that achievers in all walks of life show in their courage, vision, belief, and action. And if you think back to yesterday and today, from all the speakers we've already heard from and all the achievers we've already heard from, those words have already been mentioned several times. So I want to have a look at those in a little bit of detail. And the first one is courage. To really achieve your true heart's desires, you got to have courage. And I think it was somebody said it this morning from the stage. You got to have the courage to dream a big dream. We can all set goals that are within our comfort zone, so if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Set goals that if it doesn't come to fruition, it's okay, our lives won't change much anyway, because we're making do, we're getting by anyway. But to dream a really big dream takes courage. Because it takes courage to say, actually, I'm not happy with my status quo. It takes courage to, break away from the mainstream and say, you know what, I think I deserve a better life than this. And it takes courage, first to admit it to ourselves, but it also takes courage because along that road to success, there are going to be some hurdles and we're going to fall down. And there are going to be those skeptics ready on the sidelines to say, I told you so. I don't know what you were thinking. Your head is up in the clouds. What did you think you were going to achieve? People like us don't achieve things like that. It takes courage to pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and try again. Because the only difference between a non-achiever and an achiever is the achiever has picked himself up one more time. It takes courage to maybe change your circle of friends to a circle of friends that are going to support you on your journey, as opposed to try and hold you back. And it takes courage to, when you do fall, to not slide back into that comfort zone. Because I don't know about you, but listen, I've set goals and have publicly announced my goals and then had to suffer the humiliation and the sting of not achieving it. Anybody else gone through that? Please tell me it's not just me. How does it feel? Not good. And I think our survival instinct kicks in. And if we're not careful, we slide back and start to convince ourselves, it's all right. I'm doing all right anyway. I'm getting by anyway. I don't really need that or that or that. It takes courage to look in the mirror and say, no, we're going to have another go because I'm worth it. My family's worth it. There are too many people out there ready to trip you up. So courage has got to be the starting point if you're going to achieve your true potential and fulfill your lifelong dreams. So it's important to understand what motivates you. And traditionally, listen, goal setting was new to me, and there's a whole science devoted to it, and there's lots I have yet to learn about it. So I can only share what I've learned so far on my journey. And when I look around and we start to work with people to set goals, we ended up with a list of what I call whats. What do we want? What is the goal? Go somewhere, see something, get something. It's a what goal. But John Church, who's written the book, The Magic of Goal Setting, if you haven't got a copy of that, I really would encourage you to get one today. Barry, Knowledge is King, has got loads of them. I rang him a week ago to make sure he was going to have enough copies for everybody, because he's going to take you through this exercise in quite a bit of detail. And it starts off with, what do you want? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you want to get? What do you want to see? What do you want to achieve? All what I call the whats. He said, but that's not enough. because your what goals are just that, what. It's getting underneath the what goal to the real reason. What value does it hold for you? To the why of the goal. It's about connecting emotionally with that goal, because it's our emotions that drive our motivation. It's our motivation that drives our behavior. So it's about stepping back and setting aside some time to reflect and think about, why is this goal important to me? And when I've done this, I've realized that sometimes I've set what goals that actually have no meaning for me, which is why I haven't achieved them. Because my behavior, my motivation isn't there to do the work required to achieve that goal. So I've changed the goal to something which has an underlying meaning for me. And maybe if I gave you an example, it might make it easier to understand. You know, car plan, way back when, I've been on car plan now for, I don't know, I think nine years. And car plan was a huge goal for me, massive goal for me, because I wanted to buy a Jaguar. Now, I'm not a car person, so don't take this the wrong way. I know nothing about cars, but this Jaguar had to be blue, it had to have tan leather seats, and a wooden steering wheel and gear shift. What was under the bonnet? I really could care less. As long as it had 4 wheels and went, I was happy. And this poster of my car, it was in my dream book, it was on a kitchen wall for 2 years. Now, the reason why that car was important is not because it's a car. It could have been anything. But for me, that car represented success. It represented wealth. It represented financial independence, because I'd had an experience early in my business career that this independent businessman, wealthy businessman, drove a Jaguar. The why behind the car was financial freedom, crossing a threshold of never having enough to abundance. And it's understanding the why that motivated me to work my socks off to achieve car plan. So if you've got car plan in your goals, you need to ask yourself, why? If you have chairman's bonus in your goals list, why? What will it make you feel? And I've just taken some examples from John Church's book, okay? And if this is new to you, please, I have no idea, it's not very expensive, I don't have the price on this one, but do get it. It's a very easy read, and it'll just guide you through this process to help you connect with what's really important to you. Because it's the why, it's those emotions that will really be the platform for you to living that fulfilled life, to having that peace of mind, to know that what you're doing day in, day out has a bigger meaning. There's a bigger purpose to what you're doing, and that will shift in your behavior and also in your attitude, in your mindset. It all starts to change. So we've looked at courage, and I love this little saying. Has anybody seen the film We Bought a Zoo? I love this film. We cry every time we watch this film. Do you know, and this is based on a true story, the real Benjamin Mee. It's Dartmoor Zoological Park. And I love this. You know, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Just literally 20 seconds of just embarrassing bravery. And I promise you, something great will come of it. Do you know, I wrote things on my list that I was probably embarrassed about because I'd never even admitted them to myself. It takes courage, but it's got to start here. So it's just something to remember. When you look in the mirror, don't be afraid. Be courageous and admit to yourself, what are your true desires? And I want to be controversial for a minute. And I think about some of the different people I've met over the years and forever. And if you fall into one of these camps, which is, I don't really know what I want, I struggle with my why, do you know what? Can I challenge that? And can I ask you to think about being courageous and looking in the mirror? Because sometimes we think it's about the what's, because we may look around and see everybody else setting goals for cars, houses, school fees, holidays in Barbados, when actually all we want is lots of recognition. Or all we want is to feel really successful. We just want people to look up to us. You know, those kinds of whys don't get spoken much, do they? So you know what, you don't have to tell anybody, but you got to tell yourself. Because unless you're honest with yourself, that deep down burning desire is not going to be there. So if you're into that camp, just step back and reflect and find out what's really going to make you tick, what's really important to you. Or maybe, like me, this happens to me sometimes, you keep changing your goals, or you keep setting the same goal and not achieving it. Again, just pause and step back. Start with the what, but it's when you go to the why that really help clarifies the what as well. So it's about connecting with what's really important to you going forward. So that's identifying what and why you want it. The next step is vision, is really bringing those ideas to life. And you know, in September 1995, on Brett's insistence, he didn't give any of us a choice. We all had to sit down and write our life list, and I did, with no real belief that I was going to achieve any of it. Remember, this is me. I was nearly 22 the first time I got on a plane. I know it's shocking, but it's true. And so my list was only a list. I've had this list forever, since 1995, but it wasn't until I joined Forever that suddenly I was being taught what to do with this list of ideas. And it comes through a dream book. It comes through building a vision, a real seeing it in your mind's eye, what you want to achieve, what it's going to look like, feel like, touch, smell, hear. Because otherwise they're just words on a page. I want to recommend another book, and that's Brian Mayne's Goal Mapping. I know Brian has spoken at the Irish Success Days, he's spoken at the UK Success Days, and this was a real turning point for me in understanding the visual element to goal setting, to dreaming, to building your vision. Now, Barry's popped up at lunchtime to say the books did not arrive in time, but he wanted me to pass on an offer to you. If you go and see him today and place your order, he will ship it to you free of postage and packaging. There'll be no stamps or postage to pay. So if you haven't got that, that's another one that will really help you to understand the science of how the brain works and why it's so important to put your dreams in pictures. Because if you've got the words and the pictures, it activates your whole brain to go to work to helping you to achieve it. Now, I can tell you, when I was first encouraged to sit down and do a dream book, I don't know about you, but I said, gosh, I'm far too busy to sit there and cut and paste. Who else thought that? And again, on my upline's insistence, I thought, well, we better do this. And so my first dream book was largely based on my first list. But it wasn't until, going to some of the events, I can remember Chris and Alan at some training, maybe it was a manager's training, showing their dream book and the detail. And I can still remember in their dream book, I don't know where Chris and Alan are, where are you? Your globe with all the gemstones in it. I don't know why I remember that, but I just remember a story they told that they'd had this picture almost in the background of one of their pictures in their dream book. And they'd achieved that without actually even consciously going out to buy that globe. I thought, well, if it works for them, could it work for me? I remember John and Jane sharing their dream book. I remember at a Success Day, what feels like 100 years ago, Adam May read out his vision statement. He literally read it out. So it was a written statement, and I remember one bit of it, that part of his statement was he wanted his monthly bonus statement to arrive, and the post would have to heft it onto the table. I said, yeah, I want that in my vision statement. My bonus statement has to be hefted onto the table. So I thought, well, do you know what? It can't be an accident then that these top distributors have done the exercises and have achieved all these things. Maybe, just maybe, it'll work for. So I need to stop all the doing and busy activity and maybe do some cutting and pasting. And there are lots of tools. And over the years, I have done all of them. Dream books, posters, vision statements, affirmation cards, carry an index card, carry it around in your pocket if you're working to a really short-term 30-day goal or 90-day goal. I have everything in my diary. You know, whatever goals I'm working towards. Here's my goal map as per Brian Main. I have my check with my ideal income. I've got my life list. In my journal, I have my mentor, pictures of my mentors and what I'm going to achieve. I have a bit of a challenge, though, that I'm going to have to raise with Rex. Because when I go Diamond Sapphire, I'm fully expecting a bronze eagle statue. And I'm told they don't do them anymore. I said, well, you will, because it's in my dream book. So we'll have to wait and see. So what I'm working towards, but also what I've achieved to remind me what is possible, so to keep working towards my goals. Do you carry your goals around with you everywhere you go? Like Pauline, in my office, my whole wall where I work is full of my goals. I have my big check, and I have lots of pictures of lots of different things. I work with my journal open, where I make my phone calls, because when the no's come, I just go, next. Shake it off, next. Because that's all everybody else has done. I haven't seen that they've got a special marketing plan, or they haven't got any secret products. They don't speak a secret language. Or if they do, I haven't figured it out yet. It's bring your dreams to life. These tools will help you keep your vision alive through the tough times, because there are going to be tough times. What I've learned is the road from here to there is not a straight line. It's quite wiggly-woggly, and sometimes it's really bendy. And what's going to keep you from staying on that path until it straightens out again is your vision of what you want. So you've got to have courage to have a big vision. I want to just show you the process, and I'm a bit nervous about the next slide, and I'll tell you why. What I want, listen, I guess my point today is I'm as ordinary as the next person, really. So I took a leap of faith, and I just want to show you the process, a real live example of what happened to my list. I've blocked out some of it because it's personal. So let me show you a couple of examples. This is my list from 1995, which I still carry around with me. Now, my husband Jeff said, why did you go and black out all that stuff? Is it because it's personal? It's like opening up and saying, here I am. So that's my list. There are 58 things in my original list, 33 of which I've achieved. Over half of those 33 I've achieved since I've been in Forever. Most of the travel locations I've achieved because they've been rally destinations with Forever. It's almost as if Forever has a copy of my list and they decide where the rally is going to be next so I can tick a box. Amazing, isn't it? I've written down the few at the bottom because those were on the first page. I couldn't get all 3 pages on one screen, okay? So that was my original list. Now, some things are no longer important to me, so I will never go on to achieve them because, you know, it's 20 years since I've done that nearly. So I know I've changed, they've changed.
Not cycling in Holland, is not on your list.
Yes, the cycling in Holland is on my list. You see, I'm a real romantic. I left that on there for you guys. I had this more romantic notion of cycling in the tulips. So tell me that one, no, the daffodils, tulips, that will happen. That will happen. So maybe we'll have a European rally in Holland. I don't know, but I will be there. I will come in March. There you go, you see? Again, Forever have done it again. They say, where hasn't Diana gone yet? Better go there so she can tick that box. Isn't it spooky? So some things have changed because my values have changed. I'm a different person to when I was, and my belief system has changed. But that was my original list. So we sat down to do our first dream book. And these are the actual pages from the first dream book 10.5 years ago. And how we went about it was I did my list, Jeff did his list, and then we did a list together. And we compared our lists. And we talked through why these goals were important to us. And we have it written down why. You know, we don't have a goals binder or folder. We have a goals drawer, boxes of stuff. Because we treat this seriously. Because if it worked for John and Jane and Chris and Alan and Adam, maybe it could work for us too. So, some simple things. You remember the hot air balloon ride? That was, I guess I'm a real romantic. I thought, wouldn't that be romantic? It wasn't romantic at all. We were in a basket with 12 other people. Anyway, we still did it. I wanted to eat at nice places like Le Manoir. Gosh, to go to Le Manoir for a meal. I thought I'd never be able to afford to go there. And now I think I've been there so many times, we'll go somewhere else. This is me, and I think this is me. I have to pinch myself. I'm living this life. My card, that's the actual poster. Now, did I achieve it in January of 2003, like I said in my poster? No. Does that mean it doesn't work? Oh, goal setting doesn't work. Didn't achieve it on time. Forget it. I'm quit. Oh, tell me you haven't heard that before. I achieved it a whole year later, and I remember it specifically because I was literally 9 months pregnant. I had my second child 4 days after picking up that car, and I was so pregnant I couldn't actually drive because I couldn't have fit. But I got it. So my husband and his eldest son, my stepson, went and got my car for me, but I had to wait before I could drive it. But I got it. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer, because the road to success is not a straight line. But I knew why I wanted that car, of what I was trying to feel inside here. That's what kept me going around the challenges. And I've ransacked my house, and I could not find it. I've got it somewhere, but after a few hours, I said, you know what, this is not a good use of time. In our original dream book, I have the cover of it's Australia 2002 travel magazine, which was in that first dream book. I've still got it, but I can't find it. But when I first put that magazine, that travel brochure in my dream book, did I really, really believe I was ever actually going to go to Australia? No. I put that travel brochure in my book thinking, well, you know, thinking of Brett all those years ago. But let me show you. Ta-da! I went! Hey! Do you know, it took courage for me to write that down, to admit to myself that it was important. I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to explore different cultures. I wanted to know what it was like to experience things. That was really important. It's still really important to me. My family don't understand that, and it's okay. But it's important to me. And so when we went the first time, now, you know, in 2002, I've got 2 grown-up stepchildren who used to live in the UK. Who would know then that they now live in Sydney? Isn't it funny how things happen? So we've been to Australia again and again. So that was Australia. So achieving that was pretty big, because that for me just really cemented and reaffirmed in my mind that if you just follow the system, use the tools, but use the tools, you can achieve your wildest dreams. In our dream book, if we go back one, the top left picture of a caravan, Mediterranean, that's my eldest son, who was just a baby then. He's nearly 12 now. This is one of Jeff's dreams. He always wanted to travel, do a road trip along the Mediterranean. Great. And with each dream book, we use blue tack in our dream book. So as we achieve things, we take them out and we put new ones in. And this thing has been in there since the beginning. And, you know, I love to travel, but I don't do camping, really. I don't. I much prefer to stay in a hotel, or I'd rather stay home, to be honest. And at the beginning of last year, when we were doing our goals, and the boys do their goals as well, they have their own pages in the dream book, this page came up again. I just kind of went, oh, here we go. And Jeff said, you know, why do you always do that when we get to this page? And I said, well, because it's not really my goal. He said, no, it's my goal. I said, okay, so let me ask you a question. And I asked him, is this like a wish goal, or is it like a goal that if you don't achieve it, when you're old and lying in a hospital bed full of tubes, will you regret it? He said, I'll regret it. If I don't do it, it'll be a regret. And I went, oh, great. He said, what? I said, now we have to do it. Because it's important to us that we do whatever we can not to have those regrets. And so nearly 2 years ago, at the beginning of last year, I said, right, we better get planning it then. I said, but I'm not camping. I do not do camping. But we have a caravan. We have a big 6-berth caravan. And so just this summer gone, because I said, if we're going to do this trip, I wanted to do it while my eldest son, before he started senior school, so he would still be my little boy. And so we just did that this summer. We had 5 weeks along the south of France and North Spain. And we caravanned and it was absolutely spectacular. Anybody ever been on a 5-week holiday? I know a few of you have, the President's Club, yes, and some others. You don't have to be anywhere at any time. You eat when you're hungry, you sleep when you're tired. And we did nothing for 5 weeks. Do you think when he put that in there, 10.5 years ago, we thought we'd ever have a 5-week holiday in the same year? That we spent 3 weeks in Australia at April. I had a week in Canada in March in the same year. No, I was the one who lived thinking, people like me don't do things like that. So there. I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show you this because I wanted to show you the progression of the what, understanding the why, putting it in pictures, and then living it. And there are lots of things. There are just so many things that we've achieved. And our goals keep changing. But the tools work if you work them. But more importantly, they keep you focused. They keep you excited. They keep you motivated. They don't always happen on time or as scheduled because the universe has other plans for us. Apparently we have lots of lessons to learn along the way. Great. But they do happen. Yeah, not just me, who travels that road. Okay, so the next step is vision. I think I need a tissue if someone will oblige, please, quickly, because I haven't got sleeves. I'll save that story for another time. Okay, so courage. It takes courage to dream these dreams if no one has ever encouraged you to dream them. Vision. It's up to you to keep your vision alive and thriving. But then next is belief. People always say, is it to me? Is it possible for me? Can I do it? Do I have what it takes? I'm not sure I'm that kind of person, whatever that kind of person is. And yet, all you have to do is open your eyes and look around. Look around in forever and look around the world, because the world is full of people, full of ordinary, everyday people who have gone on to achieve extraordinary things. Listen, it doesn't matter whether you like these people or hate these people. The fact is, they started out as ordinary people, and they've gone on to achieve extraordinary lives. They had to have courage to buck the system. They each had a vision of what they wanted for themselves. And when I think about Gordon Ramsay. I read a lot of autobiographies, lots and lots and lots. People I like, people I hate, because you can learn something from everybody. And I read Gordon Ramsay's Humble Pie. And what I got from him was, you know, you go from being you to developing and transforming yourself into this new person. He said, now on your journey, you're going to make some pretty big, stupid mistakes. It's just the way it is. And the way to deal with these mistakes is just to take it on the chin, face up to them quickly, deal with them, learn from them, and move on. The bigger your goal, he says, the bigger the mistake's going to be. It's just the way, because we've never encountered those things. We've never had to deal with challenges that belong to that kind of lifestyle. So it's when we get to that lifestyle, we learn what challenges we have to deal with. And let me tell you, I've made some pretty stupid big mistakes. And it pains me, but I know there's going to be stupid big mistakes to come in the future. But I'm clear about what I want. And I just have to suck it up, have a good cry, take a deep breath, and start again, and try not to make the same mistake again. Gordon Ramsay, big mistakes. Ellen MacArthur, I read her first book after she sailed and won the Vendée Globe in whatever 19-something or other. Her first book. And I know nothing about sailing, so it was like reading half Chinese. But what stayed with me from her book was, you know, when she was sailing, she had many challenges, and she cried and sobbed and cried and sobbed. But you know, she said, my life depends on it. So you can cry all you want, but keep moving. Don't stop. It's about working on purpose, work through the pain barrier. Because what you want is on the other side. And that's how you begin to change, you stretch, you grow, you become more confident, you stand taller. Your pride in yourself will just swell. And that's Ellen MacArthur. Lee Evans' book, I just read that recently. I was in tears. I thought, please give this guy a break. You know, Lee Evans taught me about undiscovered talent. I've always believed, not always believed, I guess since I've joined Forever, I've developed a belief, and I really, really genuinely believe that within each of us is a special greatness. And for a lot of us, that is still undiscovered. And let Forever be the vehicle to help you discover and live that greatness. You know, Lee Evans has a special greatness, but he didn't know it. And he tripped over it literally and discovered it. When I look at Sharon Osbourne, what a nutcase. Wow. You want to read something extreme? Well, her autobiography is actually called Extreme. She's outrageous. She's arrogant. She's just nuts. But you know what I learned from her? Don't give a hoot what other people think. Simple, isn't it? Don't spend a moment of your energy worrying about what other people think. Because when you're old, lying in a hospital bed full of tubes, where are they going to be? It sounds ruthless, but remember, we were in our 20s, so that's how you speak. Sharon Osbourne, extreme. Be extreme. Be courageous. Build your vision. And you know what? Believe it. Because there's proof everywhere you look that whatever you want, it's possible for you if you're prepared to work for it. So sometimes I hear people say, oh, I don't know if I can do it. So we don't do anything instead. You know, doing nothing is not the option of moving forward. Don't let I don't believe in myself be the excuse not to achieve the things that matter most to you. Look for mentors that you can relate to. There are literally hundreds and thousands of mentors from all walks of life, ordinary people. I'm confident you will find some that will be meaningful for you if you look for them. We've looked at courage, we've looked at vision, and we've looked at belief. I've had the great privilege of meeting and sharing a lot of time with a very special couple on all the various rallies that we've had the privilege of attending with forever and taking my life list as we go along. And it's really on these rallies that we've been on with this family, our children, their children, all around the pools, all over the world, that you come to really appreciate what talent we have in forever. And you know, my guest speaker, my slot person, is going to come and share a little bit about themselves. He's quite an interesting man. And, you know, when I think about, you know, this gentleman, I think of a gentleman, I think of someone who has just a natural way of thinking. He's a big thinker, and I think we can all learn from him. He's got vision, bigger vision, and always has such a positive attitude, always wears a smile. And you know, when I listen to his story, I think, you know, you need to hear from him. He's got some pretty powerful stories to tell. So I'm going to introduce him, then I'm going to come off, and he's going to bring me back on. So you can help me give a very warm welcome to someone who's going to share a very powerful story, again, mirroring the things we've taken you through so far. So can you put your hands together for someone who's international silver rally achiever, car plan for many, many years, and of course has achieved profit share chairman's bonus year in, year out, year in, year out. Together with his wife, have built a phenomenal, phenomenal business. Can you welcome Ashley Riley?
Here's my bright idea. I'll just disappear. I'll just fly away from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go. Sorry, this is not scripted. Can I go back to the previous slide, please? Yes. Does that remind you of anyone? You see any similarity? You probably don't. When I had hair, I looked just like that in its heyday. And I owned a lot of property next door to Trent Bridge Cricket Ground. And I saw quite a lot of Ian Botham. And I remember one particular time they were playing the West Indies. This was in the 80s. And we walked past each other at Trent Bridge. And as we walked past each other, we both turned around. And we looked so similar. I know it's hard to believe now. But we did. We looked very, very similar. And that particular night, I went to a nightclub opening with, remember Keith Harris with Norville? Remember the yeah? I went to an opening of a nightclub with him in Nottingham. And everyone thought it was, you know, Ian Botham and Keith Harris. Oh, look, it's Ian Botham. I got fellas, yeah, I'm Ian Botham. Signing autographs and everything. It was really weird. Right. Good afternoon. My name's Ashley, and before I tell my story, I'd just actually like to tell you a few things, or just give you a few quotes that I've found, because really, Diana asked me to talk about mainly vision. And to have vision, you have to have courage, and you have to have belief, and you have to put that into action. And I've just written some things down here, and this little book of quotes that I believe you can get from Barry the Book, I find quite invaluable, especially when you're speaking. And I just want to read some of the things about vision quickly. The greatest tragedy in life is people have sight but no vision. That's Helen Keller. Without vision, people perish. I love this one. You have to think anyway, so why not think big? That's Donald Trump said that. This is another good one I love. If your vision doesn't cost you something, it's a daydream. Most men die from the neck up at the age of 25 because they stop dreaming. Without a dream inside you, there's no dream to come true. The best way to turn your life's vision is to turn off the television. The imagination helps us to see a reality we have yet to create. Vision is the art of seeing things invisible. They're amazing, aren't they? These are all gems. And the last one, this is Wayne Dwyer. You are the result of all the precious pictures you have painted for yourself, and you can always paint new ones. Well, I just love quotes. Courage, the courage of one's conviction, the confidence to act according to one's belief. Belief, trust or confidence, opinion or conviction. These are definitions from the Collins Dictionary I have at home in my office. Belief, accepted as true, often without proof. That's what Collins says belief is. Action, doing something for a particular purpose. And what's interesting, at the bottom of the definitions, it says out of action, not functioning. How many people have you got in your business out of action? Join the club. I just want to touch very quickly on what's been said previously. Jane said life is about choices, and that's what I've always believed from a very, very early age. I've been always very, very money motivated, and you'll see through my story over the next 15 minutes or 45. Yeah, it is all about choices, and money gives you choices. We live in a capitalist society. Money gives you those choices. Adam, I wrote down, when Adam was training yesterday, I wrote this down, and I don't know sure if Adam actually said this, but what are you prepared to do to succeed? And what's interesting is, for many, many years, I've asked that question of people, time and time again. At some point during the planning of someone's new business, I'll say to them, what are you prepared to do to create these dreams that you've told me about, these goals that you want to achieve in your life? What are you prepared to do? There's only one answer. I only accept one answer. And if they don't say this, then my estimation of them actually drops slightly. The only answer to that question is whatever it takes. What are you prepared to do? Whatever it takes. Andy said, build deep and wide. And that's what we've done. And that's why Louise and I have a business that is extremely secure and continues to produce income constantly, month in, month out, month in, month out. And it's the reason why, you'll see a lot of the slides, that's the reason why we've lived this life. Because we have a really, really deep business. And our deepest manager lines are actually not in the UK, which is interesting. Develop a possibility mindset. That's really what it's all about. Help other people to see the vision. Andy said that. What did Diana say? Most people don't achieve their life goals. You know, I've seen this so many times that people on their deathbeds do not regret what they did. They regret what they didn't do. And if my life ended today, I would have no regrets. I've had lots of ups and downs, and I'm going to go through one or two of them with you. I've got no regrets. I don't regret anything that I've done. Sure, I could have made different decisions. It would have turned out differently. It doesn't matter. I am what I am. I'm here, and that's the experience. And it's been a great experience. I've experienced, and we've experienced things that the average person doesn't experience. Diana's touched on some of them. We're all special. We are, aren't we? We're all special. We're all different. We all come from different backgrounds. We have different life experiences. But we're actually all special. And I agree with Diana, there's greatness in everyone. It's unfortunate that most people, for whatever reason, it's just a fact of life, never achieve that greatness that they're looking to achieve. So, I want to start by explaining to you my story. When I got involved with Forever, because there's a lot of managers here who don't know me, have never met me before. And I joined Forever in June 1995, and I'd spent the previous 20 years building a substantial property business. I'm going to share some of that with you. And in the early 90s, it started to go wrong. And by 1995, I was completely broke, skint, boracic, whatever it is, whatever it is you want to call it. And if it hadn't have been for relationships, relatives, and very close friendships, I dread to think where I would have been. I didn't want charity, and I didn't take charity from anyone, but I had a lot of help to get me over that particular period. But basically, I had nothing. I had nowhere to live. I couldn't afford a car. My brother loaned me a car. I lived in an apartment and I paid £350 a month for this apartment that I once owned. Imagine how galling that is. I'm reading a story of a Chinese businessman who actually was standing outside an office building, a multi-story office building like FLP's head office in Tokyo, selling sandwiches from a cart. And 6 months before, he was the owner of the building. Okay, my situation wasn't quite as bad as that, but it seemed it. And they were very black days, very negative days for me. And when I looked at Forever, I was very skeptical. I thought it was a scam, thought it was a scheme. Obviously, realized very quickly it wasn't, and realized that this opportunity could give me my life back. But what I want to do, briefly, and I think I've never actually done this before. This is the first time I've ever done this. This is what Diana wanted me to do, is to explain my life story, my background, and maybe why I have the mindset that I have. And it all started many, many years ago. And I'm just making sure I don't miss anything out. That my parents were working class as well. They both came from very, very working class backgrounds. However, there was a difference. My mum thought she was a Mrs. Bouquet. Yeah. Sorry for the Dutch and Irish but comedy series on television. My mum was very much like that. She was a cut above the rest. She was a little bit of a snob. My father wasn't like that. He was very down to earth, but he was from a working class background, and he stood out from his family as well. He was one of 4 brothers, and he was the one that stood out, that maybe wanted a little bit more. He's a little bit different. He wasn't willing to accept the average. They got married. They ended up in business together, and I came into the story, obviously, when I was about 15. I started my working life at 15 in my parents' retail store, along with my brother, who was 5.5 years older than me. There's a few things I remember from those days. My mother actually taught me that anything I wanted in life I could have, if I was willing to work for it, and if I was willing to be patient. Isn't that funny? And that happened as a natural process of being brought up by my mother. Just natural, that's what happened. That's what I got from my mother. When I was thinking today of those times when I was a young boy, that's what I remember. My mum saying, listen, if you want something, because that's what they'd done. They'd worked hard all their life. They had an incredible work ethic. And I got some of that as well. My father taught me how to tie a Windsor knot, and how to play tennis and how to play golf. They worked very hard and they retired with very little. I had an older brother, and this is really what I want to come on to, who was 5.5 years older than me. And my brother, as I was growing up, was a dreamer. And I always remember my aunties, my uncles, always say, oh, your brother, his head is in the clouds, he's just a dreamer. He wants to get real and get down to earth. This is what was happening in our household. But my brother was a dreamer, and he was quite proud to be a dreamer. And when he was in his early 20s, he left the family business to go out on his own, selling for a living to make more money than my father was prepared to pay him in the family business. And my brother was very successful. And the reason my brother did this is because he had a goal. He wanted to motor race. He wanted to go motor racing, and working for the family business would never, ever allow him to do that. And that's why he left the family business. And if you want to talk about vision and visualization and pictures, I'll tell you a story about my brother in his early 20s, still living at home, and I would catch him in the lounge on the floor, propped up against a settee, with his hands out like this, with his eyes closed, and he'd be racing around Alton Park, or Brands Hatch, or Silverstone, or Snetterton, or Mallory Park, one of the tracks, wherever he was racing that weekend. He got his own racing simulator inside his head. Does that make sense? Now, is that visualization or what? That's real visualization. And just to wind me up, if he knew I was around, he'd make all the noises, and he'd do all the gear changes. He was very good at it, very realistic, actually. But that was my brother. He was a dreamer. He wanted everything in life. And he taught me, he was my first mentor. And his mantra has always been, all his life, and still is, bite off more than you can chew, and then learn how to chew it. And I've got no idea if he got that from someone else or actually made it up. I've never really asked him. That's his mantra. And funnily enough, it was only the other day he said that to me. Isn't that strange? just the other day before, last week, this week. He said that to me in the beginning of the week, excuse me. So my brother was a dreamer, and he had big goals. And he taught me that. He went into the property business. I left. Is that how much time I've got left? 16 seconds. I've got a clock counting down here. Right, so he taught me all about property. First of all, he taught me sales. He taught me how to sell, and I was very successful. I made very large money, relatively speaking, and I went into property as he had done. He taught me how to do all that, so I followed him. And basically what he said to me was, listen, when you're looking for property, and he always used to come to look at property with me, you've got to have a goal, a dream, a vision of what you can do with a property. And I learned how to actually visualize a property or a piece of land finished. Does that make sense? And I got very good at it. And Louise will tell you, when we used to look at houses, she'd still be in the lounge or the kitchen, and I would have done the house, seen the garage, and in the garden. Very, very quick. I could walk around it, and I knew exactly, was it right for us? Going back to my commercial property days, I could walk into a building, and I could see it finished. I had that ability to look at a building and see the whole thing finished, walk in the front door, walk into all the rooms, and see them converted into apartments. I just had it. That was just a thing that I could do. But my brother also taught me pride of ownership. He said, would you be proud to own that building or that house? And that was a mantra, basically. If I wasn't proud, if I couldn't look at it and say, yeah, I'd like to say I own that building, I didn't buy it. And what's interesting, for FLP, we don't own our downline, do we? It's not an ownership thing, but it's a pride of belonging, a pride of association. I feel that same thing. I feel proud of the people we have in our business, the managers we have here today in our business, not just here, but in other countries in the world. That pride of ownership still, I feel, although I don't own anyone, I still feel that pride. Does that make sense? And you can feel that pride as well. Your new managers, when you break managers and more managers, you'll feel that pride of those people being part of your group. And you know what? You know, if you're doing a one-to-one with someone, and you think, oh, I wouldn't be proud to introduce this person as one of my team, don't sponsor them. Right, let me just quickly, this is going to be quick. Where do I point this thing? There you go. That's my brother's house. He bought it in 1996 as a shell. He'd rented, he bought a boat in the 70s and lived on a small boat on the River Trent outside this house. Well, sorry, outside where this house now stands. And in the 70s, he wanted to buy the land. He wanted to buy that piece of land, the park, by the side of the river. But he couldn't buy it because it was leased and it had a freeholder. The leaseholder was willing to sell, the freeholder wasn't. He couldn't buy it. So that dream of owning that piece of land went out of the window. Many years later, in the mid-80s, that piece of land came up for sale. And he looked at it, and what he was surprised to find was that the guy who bought it had started to build this house. It wasn't finished. It was a long way from finished. Kevin thought, wow. It was £400,000. My brother had £300,000. So, what did I say before? Bite off more than you can chew, learn how to chew it. He bought the property because he convinced the person that owned it to lend him £100,000. He spent a long time on the property, as you can see. It's palatial inside, and he still lives there. It's probably worth about, I think it's £2.5 million. My brother was a dreamer, but like it said in the book, if there isn't a cost, it's a daydream. With this property came 6 acres of land, and my brother wanted to build on it. The local authority said, no way. Forget it. You're not going to build on this piece of green. It wasn't green belt, but it was by the river, and it was a park that he owned. You're not going to build on this. It took him a few years, and he persuaded them he could build something on it. So he put in the plans, and they said, you're not building that. It's far too big. There's no way we're going to let you build something that big. Forget it. 3 years. 3 years. After architect after architect after architect could not get on paper what he wanted on that site. One night he sat down, this is an absolutely true story, one night he sat down with a glass of sherry and he said, right, I'll show him. I'm going to actually put down myself on a piece of paper. He's not an artist, he can't draw, yeah? He's not an architect. He really hasn't got a clue. But he had a dream in his mind, he had a vision in his mind of what he wanted to see right next to the river just outside Nottingham city centre. It was all in his mind. He put it down on paper, he put it into the planners, they said, you must be joking, we're not going to let you build this. So guess what? Another couple of years of fighting the local authority. And in the end, he built this. This was his dream. Cost £27 million to build. My brother didn't have 1 penny. Because you know where most of his money went? Motor racing. My brother has his own motor racing team. He races around in a car that is probably worth about £350,000. I don't know where he gets the money from. I haven't got a clue. His brain, and I hope I've got some of that, is the most amazing piece of machinery I'm aware of. Human machinery. The way that it thinks. It's fascinating. He remembers things in such minute detail. If you ask him, oh, what about that crash you had in so-and-so when you had a crash at Spa in a Ferrari 360? He'll tell you every single split. He'll bore you to tears with every single split second. In 2010, he had a crash at Assen. Google it, crash Assen 2010. It'll come up on Google. He's the guy being pulled out of the burning wreck. Funnily enough, he doesn't talk about that. That's my brother. Now, I'm going to be quick, although I did get 3 minutes from Andy. Thank you, Andy. Okay. In 1995, I was skint, started my FLP business, and I ran with it straight away. In my first month in June, I did 19 cc's personal. In July, I did 19 cc's because I wanted this business. I needed money. I was moving product, started to sponsor people, and started the business. The only problem was that by September, my partner of 8 years decided she wanted to leave me with my 6-year-old, soon-to-be 6-year-old son, which threw me into a bit of a tailspin. And that was kind of stalled my forever career. A few months later, well, 6 months later, I met Louise. I still continued with Forever, don't get me wrong, I didn't put it down. I did an average of about 10 cc's a month. I was convinced this was my future. I just wasn't really mentally able to sort of cope with it and really put my mind to it. And I met Louise, and that then changed everything. Because I spent a few months courting Louise, like you do. We spent a lovely summer, and then we decided we'd get down to business. I showed her the business, took her to Longbridge. She actually... What did I say wrong there? We got down to business very quickly, but anyway. So, I took her to Longbridge, and I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what Louise would say, because she was on the product, she loved the product, she got benefit from the product. And took her to Longbridge, and she just loved it, fell in love with it instantly. Said, this is our future. And that's what it's become. And we started to work the business. This was the first house we bought together. And bear in mind, we got no money. And this house came on sale because we were looking at buying a box to live in with the kids. Because we had Louise had 3, I had 1. So we've got 4 kids and we wanted somewhere to live. So what were we going to buy? All we could afford was a small box. That's the only money we had. And we actually were going ahead buying a small box. That just wasn't me, and it actually wasn't Louise either. It wasn't what we really wanted. And I had a conversation with my brother, and I remember it vividly. I was saying, Kevin, I think we're doing the wrong thing. We're almost ready to sign contracts on this little 4-bedroom box. I don't like it. I don't know what to do. And he said, well, why don't you do what you've done before when you started your property business? I bought a 6-bedroom house when I was 25, and I rented out 6 of the bedrooms, and I lived in the lounge. That was the start of my property business. Why don't you do it again? Went back to Louise, said, this is what we're going to do. I've spoken to my brother, and he thinks what we ought to do is find a big house. And this is what we found. An old rectory. It was about 9 bedrooms. Well, it ended up being a 9-bedroom, 7-bedroom house. 3.5 acres of land, huge. 3-story, built like it was Victorian, so it was built really solidly. We couldn't afford it. We just had not got enough money. We couldn't raise enough money with a mortgage. We hadn't got enough money. What did I do? I got the owner to lend me some money. That's what we did. We lived there very happily and very financially constrained as well. We developed the property, and it was finished, and we decided, because of personal reasons, which I'm not going to go into now, it'd take far too long, but we had problems. We had issues with Louise's ex-husband at the time, and we had to move away from Nottingham. We had to get away. Now, at that point in our business in 2002, we'd created enough income coming in monthly that gave us a huge amount of freedom. None of this would have happened without Forever. By the way, this house, we never would have bought this house without our then relatively meager Forever income, because we knew that income was going to grow month on month on month on month on month. And that was our motivation, to pay for this house and to get the work done. But we moved. And eventually, we moved to this house. Now, Louise's dream was to have a house with all pebbles at the front. You know, when you drive the car over, it makes that lovely scrunchy noise. That was one of Louise's things. That's what she wanted. This house had that. And I wanted a symmetrical property. I wanted a property that was not all higgledy-piggledy. That was it. That was our dream home. There was nothing to do to it. It was finished, basically. I spent quite a bit of money landscaping the gardens, but apart from that, that was it. And then, in 2005, at the managers' retreat in Portugal, we thought, why are we going home? It's lovely and sunny here. Why are we going home? Well, the police said, we've got 5 kids. Had Max by then. So what are we going to... I said, I just think we ought to live somewhere warm. So we sold that and moved to this. Now, Forever allowed us to do that. It would not have been possible. I couldn't have done this with my previous property business. It would have been absolutely impossible. We lived there very, very happily until 2008. That's the stopgap. I'm just bringing you up to date. That's where we live right now. We did live for a while in the River Crescent, that beautiful building of my brother's. When we moved back, we moved into a large apartment there. This is where we live now, and this is a temporary stopgap. Because what's our ultimate goal? What pictures do we have in our mind? What vision do we have for the future? Our vision is to have 3 homes. So we'll have a base in probably the UK or Europe. We would like to have a home in Vancouver, in Canada, where we both love and we've spent time there in the past. And we'd also like to have a home in somewhere like Sydney or Perth. Now, these homes will probably not be this size. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're going to have a mansion. You know, we may have, who knows? Level 3 profit share. But that's the goal, is to be able to spend time all around the world. And that's the picture that we have in our mind all the time. That's the ultimate goal, to have that freedom to travel, to take the kids with us wherever we go if they want to come with us. Most of them now independent at university, etc. That's the long-term goal. And you know, we talk about dream books. Dream books are fantastic, and dream sheets are great. But I've realized something recently, especially thinking about talking today, that Louise and I have actually lived inside our dream book, because we've lived beyond our means. We've pushed out the envelope. By the way, I'm sorry, if I go back a slide, you know the house in Devon, the yellow house in Devon? Guess what? We haven't got the money to buy that either. That was £200,000 out of our price range, literally. Guess what I did? I'll give you one guess. Borrowed the money from the owner and paid him 6 months later. Bite off more than you can chew and then learn how to chew it. And I think that's just as relevant to this business as any other business. I think I've got to finish now, but there's just one thing I would like to finish on. Has anybody seen the Exotic Marigold Hotel film? Yeah? Great. I watched that in the plane going out to the Super Rally. What I love from that film is the lead says, it'll be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. I just love that. But what I want to do is leave you with one of my favorite quotes. And that is, it's an old Chinese proverb. It's not anyone in particular, it's just an old Chinese proverb. And it says, if you want prosperity for 1 year, grow grain. If you want prosperity for 10 years, grow trees. If you want prosperity for 100 years, grow people. And finally, this is what we work for. This is our, okay. We have 5 children. We've educated them all privately. And this is really what our story's really been about. My eldest son, who's on that side, Aaron, he's 23 in a few weeks. That's Ollie. He's 20, University in Sheffield. He's at university in Northumbria. Max is at a fantastic fee-paying school in Nottingham. And that's where he's going, Cambridge. That's the future. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us motivated. That's what keeps the vision in our heads constantly, is why we work our Forever business. We love it. We love every second. We're proud of being involved with Forever. Every aspect of it, cut us in half, it would just say Forever Living right the way through. Because it's given me my life back. It's given us a life that we probably only could have dreamed of when we first met. And Forever has achieved all that for us. Thank you.
Here's my bright idea. I'll just disappear.
You see why I wanted you to hear from him? Belief, courage, vision, belief. None of that would have happened, though, if you hadn't taken some action. But for me, those first 3 ingredients are vital when you get to the action step. And everything is in place to help you achieve. I won't spend any time going through the what you need to do, because we've had 2 great slots this morning on explaining what's in place. And Chris and Alan, who are coming on after me, will go through the how-to, the real detail. But it's action. Those 3 first ingredients will lead you, motivate you to do what you need to do to make your dreams come to life. I want to finish on this quote. And if you haven't seen the film The World's Fastest Indian, you need to see it. And it's too long-winded to explain, so I'm just going to go through the quote, because this, for me, was life-changing. And if any of you feel this way, then I'd like you to write this down. This is Burt Munro. He had a 25-year dream to race his under 1,000cc Indian motorcycle at the Salt Sands in Utah, in Bonneville, which is where they do speed time trials. 25 years, but he got there. And of the 3 speed world records, one of them is still in place today. But this is his phrase. He said, you know, all my life I wanted to do something bigger and better than all the other jokers. And this is it. This is the place where big things happen, Bonneville. That's the first time he made it to the Salt Sands to race his motorcycle. And he says this, you live more in 5 minutes flat out on a bike like this than most people do in a lifetime. It took courage for him to step out of his comfort zone. But he lived more in that one dream that most people do in their life. And so I've taken his motto on board. And you know, all my life, I wanted to do something bigger and better than all those jokers. And you know what? This is it. This is the place where big things happen forever. So have courage, fuel your vision, believe in yourself, and take the right action. You will live a life beyond what you ever thought was possible for yourself. So thank you again, Ashley. Thank you.